somewhere. Like,
So
if we're in a if we're in a simulation, and everything that's happening to us is being harvested or whatever, but it's like, say our real bodies are somewhere else, and this is all running somewhere, like, but say our real bodies don't even represent these things.
Right.
It could be some other shape or some other, I don't know. I'm just like entertaining some of these ideas.
Ooh, could be that too.
Because like, what is this place if it's illusory? What is the real place if this is illusory? You know?
It feels like it would probably be,
if there's karma and samsara, all that, like Maya, the veil of Maya, whatever we're seeing is Maya.
I guess.
Right? What is the real place if this place is illusory? Or is there a real place? Is there no real place?
I would say it's what do they call it? In Gnosticism, they call it the pleroma, the source, the like the highest vibratory dimension. That's like where the God and like the closest entities to the God source like dwell. Like,
but is a part of us there already?
Yeah, I think that's. I don't know how many dimensions you would think there are. 11, 12? I don't know. If we're going with that, it would be like 10. You know what I mean? And then 11's the source. Like the top, whatever the last dimension. I don't know how many agreed upon dimensions are there.
I think there's something like 11. Like I saw some video where they like imagine up to the 11th dimension or whatever. I'm gonna start. We started rolling already. I don't even know when this started. Okay.
2 minutes ago, so hello.
2 minutes ago. Hey everyone, we've been talking for a while, and we didn't know the camera was on. So we're just gonna run with this one because we've been deleting a bunch of them, and we've been missing some good content and conversation that we're trying to capture here. So we wanted to go over some pretty interesting concepts. I guess you can kind of see where we're going with some of this, about talking about the illusory nature of reality, the nature of our bodies and our minds and our awareness, our consciousness. Is our consciousness, or the very fact that we're aware, separate from the program or software that runs in our mind, which we kind of have already know is separate from our body in some sort of way, because we do have experiences separate from our body where our minds are, such as dreams or DMT or ketamine or whatever. It takes you to another place, and while your body is still here. And we wanted to get into some pretty radical sort of ideas, I guess, for some people about the nature of this place that we're in, whether it is some people hold the idea that it is a school, or others think it is a prison. I don't necessarily think the two are mutually exclusive. It could be somewhat of both. But I think a lot of it is what we make of it, largely. So I don't think it's all bad. I think it can be bad. I think there are a lot of troubling sort of details when you start digging into certain stuff. Like a lot of what Johnny sent me a week ago. By the way, hi, I'm George. This is Johnny. He has a YouTube channel, so do I. We'll probably post this on both eventually. But anyway, he sent me a Reddit link about r/escaping prison planet, I think it's called.
Yeah.
And someone did a great job of compiling a whole lot of related data to that idea about whether our souls are stuck here in an endless cycle of reincarnation in order to be farmed or harvested for energy, which I don't think it's as crazy as it sounds, but I'm mainly because of when you dig into the what some of the power structures here seem to be about as far as the Catholic Church and the Vatican.
Yes.
And all that, and coincidentally, we're recording this on Catholic Holy Saturday. I think it's Easter tomorrow for Catholics.
Yeah.
Well, that's hello. Yahweh, is that
you? I had something told me to check the music. We had some binaural beats going in the background. YouTube algorithm's going a little crazy here.
Oh, that's funny.
But
really got us at a good time, huh?
Yeah. Hopefully that doesn't get applied for copyright now.
That doesn't bother me. Oh shit!
No,
I forgot about that. You can't even say certain things on YouTube anymore, right?
No, we'll cut that. I'll cut
like
that.
Like the R word or something like that. You know?
Yeah.
Like hape, rape. I pronounce it differently.
Yeah.
You can't say that on YouTube.
We'll come back. We'll cut that, but. No, it's an interesting thing. It's true that the perfect segue is looking at what's happening here. There's clearly an agenda and a narrative being agreed upon here in this country even now. Right. I think it's just interesting. I came to this recently because of the UFO surge right now, or UAP, whatever you want to refer to it as. So. That's an interesting way of getting to where I came into this right currently is just how frequent there's a news article every other day or supposed
yes. I haven't been paying attention to that.
Yeah, I mean, I also am on the r/UFOs and all those deep ones, but it's more frequent and in my face. I would say on a daily basis, but there's definitely a lot that. You see those Pentagon released footage and things like they have you seen those like with the gimbal? I forget which ones. Honestly, at this point, I don't even know the names of the ones that they've talked about versus the ones I've seen.
Aliens?
Like no, just
UFO
like UFO sightings. Yeah, like the gimbal.
I saw a video of the Vatican where all these cardinals are going by. They're all in white robes and stuff, and then there's this little dude in a red robe. And it looks like a reptilian. You even see footage of the guy of the thing's face, and it looks like a freaking little green reptilian.
Oh fuck!
Like, I know Hollywood is real and all that shit, but it looked pretty fucking legit. The footage, like, it looked like actually the Vatican and all these cardinals and stuff. I mean, plenty of people have admitted to the fact that of all this reptilian stuff. I mean, I just
snake thing and the reptilian eyes behind the I forget what
in
it is.
Room, the Paul rep room, whatever in the Vatican where that's not even the creepiest thing about that room. It's the whole metal thing in the back,
the metal
right?
Jesus,
right? All these weird, creepy, like demonic looking beings. All together look like it's puppeteering. Whoever is in front of it. That's creepy looking, man. And the thing is, I feel like this place, this earth was, very well could have been a place where that was more like a school or a more positive place where more learning took place in a way that was civil and peaceful, and then was kind of taken over by some other forces that are then using its inhabitants for its own ends.
I mean,
like Atlantis, all the lost history of what could have been happening on Earth, the stuff that Graham Hancock is onto. Because I think there's a reason a lot of that history is hidden, right? Is because something was going on there that isn't in the official narrative that they want us to know about. Because the official narrative about history on Earth has a lot to do with the pain and struggle and all of this. Like, it's been part of the thing for the whole time. But there could have been a time where things were very, very nice on Earth, and we were more like other, potential other star systems that could be possibly more peaceful or harmonious or whatever, and there could be a history of that here on Earth, like they talk about Atlantis and Lemuria or whatever. There could have been advanced civilizations here that got destroyed because of one reason or another, and then something else started building up as the dominant force on this planet, and they were the Draco Reptilian, the Alpha Draconis, whatever sort of beings that aren't so nice and don't run by that whole a set of rules or whatever way of being. And I don't know how to reconcile them being bad and trying to live a life that's like without wanting to blow your head off or something. and I'm even fucking look at the shirt I'm wearing, reptile guy with the mushroom. But
I mean,
I don't think it's all bad.
No, there's definitely.
I don't know.
There's definitely.
I don't think the snake is all bad.
No, there's good. It's again polarity. There's not really good and bad. It's just all one thing. Observed from different extremes of that degree, varying. But I do think like there's intervention, so to speak, from both parties, both those with good intentions and those with ill intentions, because I do look at like the story of the serpent in the garden as being a reptilian giving knowledge that, hey, you're being tricked,
right,
you're being deceived,
right, right.
And specifically to a woman it was told, which is interesting.
Exactly. And so these beings that are potentially tricking us could very well be these beings that so many people pray to, like Jesus or Yahweh, the God of the Hebrew Bible, or Allah, or even a lot of the Buddhist deities that people pray to.
Right.
Like putting any other being above yourself as the absolute judge is in a way giving some other thing power that you don't really at the end of the day know is the creator, and they could very well just be just like you and are tricking you.
Yeah.
And it's some other being that has achieved some kind of higher state, and but they don't look at you as equal to them, so they look at you as something that they can use.
Yeah.
It's funny because I don't know if you've ever watched the X-Files and paid attention to them, but man, they were really alluding to some serious stuff there in the 90s. And like they're really kind of giving you a window into what's really going on, I think, because it's pretty far out, the stuff that they get into in the X-Files. And like the being Scully is abducted, right? Then they find a baby that had her genetics or whatever.
Yeah.
That's nuts. And then what's the other stuff? They were basically they were like pharmaceutical reps who were kind of like experimenting on that baby.
Right.
So this type of stuff could be happening. People could be getting
harvested,
parts of them harvested, so that they can make children to do experiments on or whatever. This stuff could be very real.
Yeah, it's
and a lot of people report these kind of experiences too when it comes to abductees or the near-death experiences.
Yeah, that's
reading that Reddit page is crazy, because that guy was really did a good job about compiling relevant information.
Yeah, a lot of the sources for this are going to be probably the Reddit right now, but it's hard to cite everything because there's a lot of knowledge that we've gained over the last like 15 years or so, so
right. We wanted to do a little bit of background and introduction, but we didn't really begin that way, and that's all right.
Yeah.
But
we'll get there.
I mean,
keep watching.
You can kind of get an idea about what we're about from some of our other videos. I mean, it's hard to think about where to begin, but I mean, I started getting into some of these more far out sort of concepts a very long time ago, starting with an interest in Eastern religions, pretty much, with meditation and Buddhism and Hinduism, and thinking about things from that perspective. Being raised Orthodox Christian, not very strict. I just, I went to church for a few years when I was younger, and it was an interesting experience, but I never really latched onto it. And then psychedelics and other psychoactive substances really opened my mind to a lot of different potentialities and different experiences that were capable of having as a human being with a brain, and how it relates to all this stuff around us, all the matter and chemicals that make up everything that we interact with. That was my intention from the very beginning, really, when it came to experimenting with substances. I was trying to map consciousness and understand it, and then that led me down a road where things just got weirder and weirder. Trying to figure out what's going on, what I'm doing here, how I got here, all this, trying to reconcile my felt experience as a child about feeling like I always felt like I was older than I really was, or like I was kind of had like this outsider sort of feeling, like I had done things before, or like I always got constant deja vu when I was younger. So I really always felt like I had done this. Yes. And the idea of just like dying and life being over, or only having one existence, just never made any sense to me. I mean, when I was younger, maybe there was a while where I got kind of wrapped up with like Christian fear, but that went away pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, similar. Well, young age. I can't really recall. It was either, I really can't recall. I think I got into meditation, I want to say it was from having a friend. I mean, it was someone who you also knew, who I'm pretty sure, who was Korean, who
Noah?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Noah who got me into to meditation, and then it was really maybe only, I don't know.
I remember talking to Noah about meditation too.
Yeah.
In like 6th grade.
Yeah.
Around the same time that I think you're referencing. It was around the same time people started smoking pot too. I remember Noah making that distinction between people saying that time went by really slowly when they were stoned, or tripping, which can certainly be true. I don't know if we brought up tripping at that time, but I think we're talking about being stoned on weed and how time went by slower.
Yeah.
And then he was contrasting it to meditation, saying that time went by very quickly, where once you got into a deep state of meditation, hours can go by and you don't really notice, which I think is a pretty a good observation.
Yeah.
Because it certainly is like that in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
As far as I can tell.
It feels like 20 minutes when you're in there for 60.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, getting into a deep state of meditation definitely makes things go by a little bit faster.
Yeah. It was the weed literally the same time too. So for me, I had two pretty more grounded. Like if I couldn't get weed, I was like, I'll meditate.
Right.
You know, for me, weed was just a shortcut.
I never spent as much time meditating as I would like to, but I definitely did quite a bit of it. And for a while, I really liked meditating with LSD. I use that that combination a lot, and got into some pretty cool states of mind with those.
Imagine, yeah.
So, yeah, it was real useful.
That's awesome.
What do I guess where this kind of goes, and how this stuff sort of ties in to the what we brought up before about the soul trap reincarnation cycle versus the idea of karma or samsara from Eastern traditions, about the wheel of reincarnation being called samsara, and karma, what keeps you in that cycle. I guess the meditation sort of dovetails with that in a way of being a practice that is supposed to lead you out of that, which is supposed to be an illusion according to those practices, or
the veiled Maya.
Right. Or moksha, being the state of exiting samsara, which is what Hindu aim for.
Yes.
So yeah, I think I know there are other approaches as well, and there's a lot of different schools of thought or practices that apply to this. I know you've mentioned one as far as the solar body. I haven't heard so much of where that came from.
I just want to preface and say I haven't explored it past Damien Eccles, who's practiced like high magic. So it's coming from a magic perspective. So that's another thing to add. Like, we have some more recent, other than just Eastern beliefs and drugs. we also have a little bit more background now with like some hermetic arts, like alchemy with George here, and both of us have a little rough astrology from kind of the second degree too, but and then for me some magic, some more magic this past year or so here, and Damien Eccles has been someone who's been a great source of information for that subject, and he mentions after this after this physical body's death, you go to the astral body, but that also has a death. Your second death is your astral death. So he says activating your solar body is the way to avoid that, and I guess you get to retain some level of this consciousness, so you have all the lessons you've learned up to this point, so you basically get to skip the whole karmic cycling. But
that's the ultimate goal in a lot of these ideas. I think an interesting thing is I haven't really heard so much of any of this referred in alchemical stuff. But I probably haven't dug deep enough, because I haven't really read enough old Western alchemical manuscripts or texts, because it's probably in there. I know there's definitely some idea of constructing like a light body, essentially, or something like a vessel, constructing of a vessel for your consciousness that will, I guess, survive death, or in some sort of way do that, where you're bringing the leaden consciousness, or your base Saturnine consciousness, into the solar golden consciousness that is perfected and completed. And I guess I don't know what, I haven't heard any alchemical term that would be equivalent to samsara, or whatever, the wheel of reincarnation being from the Western tradition out of Europe, where a lot of other interesting teachings come from about practices for refining and purifying and building your own consciousness up, or your own astral body up, so that you have a vehicle once this body is is gone.
Interesting.
Someone recently brought the idea of rainbow body up to me.
Yes.
A lot more, and the only time that I had heard of that was in reference to some monk who died in the mountains or whatever, and his followers or his brothers or whatever who he lived with saw like rainbows in the sky.
That's awesome.
Right after he died or something like that. And it was, I think it was from the Dzogchen position of the tradition. I don't know if I'm saying that right.
Yeah,
it's like Dzogchen.
Yeah, they said it in that podcast that I watched with Duncan Trussell.
Okay.
He mentioned the name.
Right.
He says
Duncan
it with a
Trussell
D.
would have. Yeah.
He said it somehow.
Would have mentioned this. But a friend of mine was telling me about rainbow body because he got super interested into it, and there are practices as far as building it, and he's been trying to weed out some of the more ridiculous ones or the more unattainable practices as far as sitting there and meditating for hours and hours, because a lot of people don't have the time to do that or the discipline to do that, or just don't want to, or doing a silence retreat or something, even though they have those, and there's like Vipassana, you can go to a free silence retreat. They don't cost anything. I've kind of wanted to do it, never done it, but there's like 10-day silence retreats where you go and they instruct you on how to, I've heard that they're really cool, but they instruct you how to do the breathing, how to pay attention to your breathing, what to do, and they'll feed you, and it's just 10 days of being totally silent, which I think is kind of cool. And I think those sort of practices definitely will go some way towards the building of a light body or a light vessel for your consciousness. I'm trying to think of what else Jordan said about the rainbow body. He was implying that there is a way to achieve rainbow body while still alive and conscious as yourself in this body right now, and that he was saying that the rainbow body is absolutely physical, and that the Dzogchen,
I think you said
was actually one of the only traditions where you have to die before you achieve the rainbow body. When Jordan was saying in most other traditions that are about building the rainbow body, you achieve it before death, and you can sort of astral travel with it. He says you could do basically anything, and a lot of these ascended masters had achieved rainbow body before death, like call him Guru Rinpoche or something is one of these. I forget. There's some other name, some Tibetan name that they had for him. I forget the other name. I think that's basically his face on some Alex Gray painting that had the sun in the middle. He's got a little mustache and such. But there's a bunch of those guys who have they have statues of, and they pray to in the Buddhist traditions, that even I bet Jesus,
solar body,
right, had achieved this version of the human body that is aligned, cleaned, and because you have to have both the body and the consciousness working in the same way to have this happen, to have it happen. That you have to be doing the work mentally so that your mind is prepared, but then if your body isn't tuned up properly, you won't be able to achieve it either. So diet and health and everything else, breathing and posture and skin health and everything, your organs, all that stuff has to be set up right for you to achieve those higher states of being. And I think it does have quite a bit to do with the frequency, vibration sort of stuff that 100%. I don't think we have got into just yet.
Well, when I was like in high school, I started getting into like binaural beats, and I would be under there for minimum a half hour. Sometimes I would do like a condition based meditation or condition based binaural beat, and then listen to one that would give me my desired effect. So I'd be there for like 50 to 60 minutes sometimes, you know.
And what do you mean condition based?
There was some. I specifically was using that iDozer binaural beats, and they had one called conditioning or something, and it got you to whatever brain state. I don't know all my states, like alpha, beta, delta, theta. I don't know which one is for what, but it got you to whatever one is needed to get you open to receiving more properly. That way you're not fighting it. You know what I'm trying to say? You're already like, it's more of like a self-hypnosis in the first one, so to speak. But after that,
yeah, that makes sense. So you're ready for like a priming.
Yeah, it's a primer
of the body.
Yeah,
body,
yeah.
And you get ready to receive the deeper one that's going to put you into another state.
Yes, and that's when I realized you can listen to something and feel under the influence or feel in an altered state of consciousness, basically. And I took that pretty strongly, and I held on to that as something important to explore. And just that alone is a great example of the fact that frequency affects your brain, which affects your consciousness. So
it took me a long time to kind of really believe it as much as you should, because it doesn't seem like something that is very like intuitive for a lot of people, I guess, because we're not used to something like so intangible having a direct effect on your body and mind, but it really does.
It really does.
I was just thinking about the tunings and such like that, but I guess that would be somewhat relative to bring up, because if we're talking about the idea of this planet being a prison planet or some sort of place where people are tortured or where the negative emotions are harvested or such, or anything where you think about, I was just thinking about the frequencies in 440, and there's that people say that the Nazis used it or whatever to make people uncomfortable or to brainwash them, or
I think just anxiety and stuff,
whatever, right? Inducing anxiety, because then like, what is the reason we tune to 440, right? Everyone's there's so many videos about this. Like if you've looked into it even a little bit, it begins to be pretty self-explanatory.
Our instruments,
like, our instruments. We tune to a 440 hertz in America and in plenty other places, and we have for quite some time now.
Yes.
But that was established by the Rockefeller Foundation not very long ago.
Which is important to keep in mind.
Right. And before that, we very likely tuned to a much lower frequency for A. And not only a lower frequency, but one that is a lot more harmonically suitable, if you ask me, or physics, it seems. So in people talk about this is why I don't like the language of high vibration necessarily being good always, right? Because in the case of us tuning to 440, dropping it down to either 432 or from what I found out, my favorite 419, as far as getting frequencies that are more conducive to how they relate to matter. They're more harmonious. There's more structure within them that feels good or that is healthier for us to be inundated with. And I think that has to do with overtones and the way that the frequencies stack.
Yes.
So if we're in like bringing, I think a lot of bringing things higher, it causes for more, especially in that spot 440 particularly, it makes things more dissonant. And I mean, not only because it's higher, it's like in that sweet spot, there's something with it that creates more dissonance in 440. Because I heard something say, even going up from 440 is better than being at 440 in particular. It's like a sweet spot of dissonance, apparently. But bringing things down feels a bit more comfortable to me.
Yeah, same.
And it seems that, I mean, I've just played around on guitar and I figured out a way to get 528 on the fretboard. It's as C sharp if you bring your A down to 419 hertz. And there's a bunch of other interesting frequencies on the fretboard in that way.
All of them.
They seem to those like 528, 432, the other solfeggio frequencies, when people do the somatics experiments with the tone generator, the board, and the sand, making shapes, you see 440 makes a very dissonant tone, and then you see the other frequencies make geometries that come out articulated shapes.
It's important.
It's important because that's it affects our bodies. It affects the whole all the shapes that then come out of us.
Yeah, because it's important to note that if we're not, all right. So this was taught to me at an early age, and we were going over this before. My high school teacher told me this in biology, that nothing's at rest. We're always vibrating. We're always moving, and we're never like, I'm never sitting on this chair right now. I'm technically like hovering right above it super fast. And if you think about that, then it makes sense for these, and if these sound waves are affecting us when we do binaural beats, music obviously is going to affect us and affect that space that we have in this vibratory matter. Right?
It straight up affects your nervous system. And a lot of people who people who are autistic or on the autism spectrum, Asperger's, whatever, a lot of people have a lot more sensitive nervous systems these days, and I think it's essentially an evolutionary thing. Why? It's almost like evolution sorting out these different capabilities. Like people start becoming a lot more sensory sensitive.
100% agree.
At this point in time in history, because it's like evolution is almost like trying things out.
Yes.
And I think people will start responding to that sort of stuff. But the thing about 440 is I think it's really sly. They slip it in there, and people don't really notice all that much. But it could be causing a lot of
tension,
unknown tension, right? It's just there. People don't pick up on it. But it can be causing a lot of anxiety or anger. People just listening to the radio, people on TV, all this stuff. Why does everyone have anxiety? Everyone has anxiety. Anxiety is like the most diagnosed medical condition in the country.
Yeah. Well, if it is all a pushed agenda to keep, and if it goes back to the Rockefeller thing, you look at, like, if anyone who's watching this doesn't already know this, like them and like literally 3 other names pretty much control all of the companies on this planet. So that's important to note, which means everything has an agenda, so to some level somewhere down that line, some narratives being pushed. And that's what I was getting at before with the UFO thing. That got me into this whole thing too. I don't think it doesn't matter, but also to note that the fact that more mainstream people and mainstream news are agreeing on UFO sightings means they're trying to create a narrative. You know, there's something trying to be pushed, because that doesn't just happen.
I think it was
especially something so fringe.
Eric Weinstein on the Joe Rogan podcast. I saw some clip. I don't even know if I watched it, but he basically implied something about being in a staged UFO situation where we're kind of they're almost faking it now. But it's weird because it's like both is happening. It reminds me of Rick Rubin being on the Andrew Huberman podcast, where they talk about wrestling, and Rick Rubin mentions wrestling, and one of the reasons he likes wrestling is because you don't really know whether it's real or fake. Like, you know it's fake, but also part of it is real, right? Because like someone breaks their leg, right, they might have actually broke their leg and be sick, or if two friends are fighting, or someone if they end up getting married, are they married in real life? Sometimes they are, and then they're married in the wrestling. It's like, then Rick Rubin says people think wrestling's fake and the world is real, but wrestling is real and the world is fake, because in wrestling you know it's fake.
Right.
They're open about that.
Right.
And whereas there are good boxing matches where like you thought the boxing match was real, but like a lot of times it was rigged.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but in wrestling, you know, it's just a story. Right. So he was talking about that being funny. Why did I bring this up?
You wanted to go into probably I was assuming you probably wanted to go into how that is the illusion.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
If we know we're in an illusion, then it changes the game.
The context of how real it can be, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. The whole video game-esque or computer-esque thing. Maybe, but like the fact that everything is observable as energy and not code is what makes me like I need to see more code and more glitches, because I still see everything as energy,
as a sort of seamless interaction of energy.
Yeah, so for me,
I don't understand computers enough to really make the argument for this place being completely simulated, or us being in some sort of video game or something. You probably understand that better than I do, and I see what you mean by wanting to see more code-like things, or the aspects of code.
Something more
displaying.
I see more chaos that's organized, that wants to return to a state of being and a state of calmness, especially in nature. You destroy something, and it wants to get back to its natural harmonious state before it was destroyed. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It wants to self-regenerate to that original structure as a tree or a plant or whatever. You know what I mean? If it can. You know what I'm saying? The ones that can do that. So I just assume that that's what happens with everything in nature, and I observe nature from like an energetic perspective too. So for me, I still could see how it is a simulation, but more dealing with energy, maybe in the mind of the absolute source. Like more of like it's a dream, because it all has the components of what would make it be a dream.
Well, there could be different types of computers that we're not entirely aware of yet, or that are running in different ways, or running on different sorts of code. Right, quantum sort of code.
It would have to be,
where it's computing, but it's not zeros and ones. It's like zeros and ones and twos and threes and shit. And it's like it's a computer that has this hyper dimension to its code.
Shit. Yeah, that's true. All right. Yeah.
We just don't know like how that works, because we design simpler things that are running off like 2D levels of dimensionality or complexity,
I see what
or
you're
just
saying.
on and off switch level of complexity. There can be more layered things in the same way that they try to add dimensions to physics or to string theory to sort things out to account for more complexity or whatever.
Well, I guess either way, it no matter what way you look at it, it is still a simulation, because it's still some sort of rigged experience.
Right, and it still is illusory. And the other thing that I don't think that, I mean, you can't really answer it, but you can answer it in some sort of way, is everyone really seeing the same sort of colors that you are?
No.
Like, we know that no one's seeing exactly the same sort of colors. I mean, heck, we know some people are blind, or colorblind. But what if it's radically different? What if people are literally seeing like inverted colors compared to you, or just some sort of other radically different color spectrum, and that gives a reason to why they act certain ways, or why they experience the world in certain ways. If everything is shifted or something, Like, what if someone else sees, I don't know, just completely different colors? There's really no way of knowing. Maybe there is, and I'm just ignorant to it. But well, I feel like there's not.
No, I think it's true. Because I think today or yesterday, I was interacting with my mom, and she pointed out a color on something that we both observed, and she said like it was like pink, and I saw orange. I'm like, ooh, we're seeing a different color here.
Yeah, I mean, we all just the other day took some paint swatches or whatever and put them on the wall, trying to agree on the same kind of paint to match the wall, and we basically all agreed. But it doesn't mean that we're seeing the same color. They could be matching the same colors, but they could be radically different colors that they're matching for each person.
It could just also be the overall tone too. Sometimes there's like a tone you can't explain.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? With that kind of stuff, I don't know. With paint, I mean.
Yeah, I feel like maybe we're getting off topic, but not exactly, because this is in the realm of things being illusory, or the nature of our experience, which is largely visual.
Look over here. I got you.
Yeah. But resin.
Well, no, exactly. It's just, I think, supportive to the argument that, you know, it seems sort of like more overwhelmingly structured to be this negative or trapped-esque quality to
right. It does seem, it's way too high def, and there's way too much potential for ecstasy, pleasure, any kind of heightened experience that is enjoyable. There's way too much potential for that, for it to only be a soul trap or only be a prison, and there's way too much of that built in for it to only be a trick. Because they say, oh, there's the fact that there's beauty is just a distraction to the fact that you're in a prison and being harvested for your energy or whatever. There's too much. There's too much beauty, and there's too much capacity for pleasure, ecstasy, a whole
nirvana
gamut, exactly, of positive, enjoyable experiences, of, you know, tasty flavors and smells and textures and love and whatever else, all the fun things that happen
to continue euphoria.
Right. There's too much of that, I think, for it to built in, for it to just be about pain and suffering. Because there's that guy, whatever, Sanity Machine guy. You've listened to a bunch of his videos, and I like a lot of his content. He makes decent points, but he's way too negative and freaking butthurt about the whole thing. Like, I get it. He was raped or something. He talks about being molested as a child. That sucks. I'm sorry. But and stuff like that, it might be harder for people who've had those sorts of experiences to think that, you know, this is something other than a torture mechanism.
Understandable.
It doesn't, the negative experiences that many people are having, or what happens to many children because of religion or whatever else, is not a complete negation of this place being positive or neutral at the very least.
Right.
You know, or having capacity for something positive.
No, if you can't, like, I mean, if there's, no, exactly, and there's people who have, like, gurus, like Sadhguru.
Exactly.
Like,
you want to end this now? We're almost at 50 minutes. We can take a break and then maybe do another one. We're getting close to 50.
Yeah, but there's also a pause. We can pause.
We can pause, but I don't know how to pause it.
I can just push it.
You could
I'll push it for now.
Okay.
We're gonna take a quick break. We're back. We rearranged a little.
We're back. We changed things around a little bit.
Source.
And we missed a little bit of good talk there, where we left off. We were talking about things being too, there being too much potential for happiness and pleasure for this to be an entirely negative place. What I was just getting into is about being humbled by some of the beauty of nature while you're standing next to a tree that's hundreds of years old and huge, and your whole life is just a blip in within the context of it all. If it's real, and that's one of the things that's been driving me nuts lately. Because I don't know if you, someone designed it either way. If you're experienced, not designed it, something designed whatever made it, right? Because one of the things that always bugged me as a kid was that they presented evolution, or the theory of evolution, as being something that opposed the idea of creation or a creator God.
Right.
Like I always thought, like, why couldn't a God implement a process evolution or something like that?
Bang.
Right, there could be there could be an intelligence behind something that created processes, that creates other things, that does have a freedom to it, that does the creator is hands off at a certain point, and things are just running as it created, but it created a process or something. It didn't make everything exactly the way it is, and everything that unfolds was in the eye of the creator to be that way. But whatever.
I agree.
So, what were we getting at before? The white light stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So we wanted to tie that into where we began with the ideas about reincarnation and all that. So some people report, apparently, from the source being that Reddit page, are Escaping Prison Planet, where that guy has a compilation of information about about the white light, or the light at the end of the tunnel, what happens when people report when they have near-death experiences. So the idea is basically that there's some kind of technology, right, that the moving towards the white light is not something that you want to do.
Yes.
Where the white light is a tool to pull your soul into some sort of mechanism that then puts you back in the body again. And you don't want that.
Yeah.
I've heard from someone personally, when I just got out of the rehab treatment, full disclosure, a few weeks ago. There's a guy I met there who was shot 9 times. And he said when he was pulling up to the hospital, he saw that white light thing. That was the last thing he experienced, was he said that white light shit, it's real. He was the last thing he remembered. He drove himself to the hospital after being shot 9 times. Whoa. And last thing he remembered was getting out of the car and seeing that white light. He was like, yeah, go away from the white light.
Damn.
And he survived. But,
why is it, we're also referencing near-death experiences for, I can't think of anyone's name, I'm sorry, but there's plenty of near-death experiences, and in particular, if you look up near-death experiences, trap, or some kind of other keyword to trigger that particular type of near-death experience, you'll find a lot, and that also is where this whole white light thing's coming from, for more context, and everyone says the same. A majority of people say the same thing with those experiences, that they felt just some kind of desire not to want to be near the white light, that it was not where they wanted to go, and some a lot of people mention seeing religious figures, and it seems to be, I think, based off of each region. Western people will see Jesus and stuff, or family members, which seems to be also something we can argue. And then I think in Eastern religions, don't they see their entities and things?
Right.
So,
I think you see Kuan Yin, or some Buddha, or whatever. I've had some people tell me that Jesus, Kuan Yin, and all these are the same being. Some being that's about compassion.
Yeah.
And there's who I mentioned. I don't think it was on video. That I mentioned a guy named Dr. Salim earlier. He drew a parallel between Jesus and Horus or Ozar, they call him in the Egyptian pantheon, and he says the difference between Jesus and Ozar or Heru, I think is Horus, and Ozar is Osiris. He said Ozar comes to save the righteous, whereas Jesus comes to save the sinners, those who have. He says that Ozar will not save those who are not willing to save themselves.
Interesting.
Which I think is interesting, because Jesus, with Christianity, it doesn't matter what you do as long as you repent and you are all you do have to do is admit that Jesus is the Son of God, and and then you're saved. Right, that's the whole deal.
Right.
But I think there's what is it? Like Billy Joel says, Virginia, they didn't give you quite enough information. Whenever you got a brand new soul and a cross of gold. I don't really even like Billy Joel, but but he was on to something there. Only the good die young, I think it is, right? And so that was a drop, a hint drop about all this kind of stuff, where I think they don't. The idea is that this being is tricking you into giving your energy to them through prayer or whatever else. But I don't think the teachings of Jesus are all bad. Don't get me wrong. Or Christianity, I just think it's been kind of infiltrated, and it's like they're wearing a Jesus mask or something, but there's really lizards behind it. Or something, but the lizard isn't all that bad at the same time. I'm trying to reconcile all this stuff and make fucking sense out of it, but I can't. It doesn't all make sense, because I'm like, is the lizard evil? Have they taken over Christianity, or is that like, is there part of it that's always been there? Or it's not even just Christianity, just the teachings of peace and being nice to your fellow man, and all this other stuff, because it doesn't seem very like reptilian. Because the reptilian approach is supposed to be all like survival of the fittest, fucking slay your weak young, and
right,
whatever,
right.
Just all that, just brutal. And
I think it's supposed to be. Well, they all seem to come from saying the same thing. Like, even if you look at early understandings of teachings of Jesus, it wasn't worked to be a specific like orthodoxy or anything.
Right.
It was right. More like you would see like a Buddhist teaching or something like that.
Well, I think there was Jesus and what he said, and then the people who like commodified
exactly
the teachings.
Right.
I think it's a real separate sort of thing.
Right, exactly.
It's weird.
Right, because I see Jesus as like an ascended master.
Right.
Right,
but then the people running the whole Christian show
built a narrative around him.
No, yeah, exactly. They did something not so good.
Not so good.
It doesn't, and it's tricking people, and it could even be some other being. But then this is where I get
Catholicism specifically has a lot of hints with it. You're saying too.
This is where I then get confused with the lizard being told as the evil one in Christianity. Like, they even kind of set it up in that way. As the snake being Satan. Right? And then there's this stuff about the Watchers.
Right. This is where Gnostic Christians.
And what if the Watchers came, because that Morgue video was blowing my mind the other day, because he mentioned all these other like archangel names that you don't know as the normal archangel names. It's not like Uriel and whatever the other ones are. Gabriel and Michael and whoever the other archangels are. There were all these other names he was mentioning as being the Watchers, who were kind of part of Lucifer's crew, who came down and taught people all of these different things that are very useful for living in matter, like the sacred geometry stuff, probably stuff about chemistry and alchemy, stuff about probably sex and whatever else. and these could have just been human beings who figured out a whole lot more than we did. But then, and they were trying to say something about, right? Lucifer's trying to say something about God or whatever Yahweh or whoever is preaching their way of things, right? Lucifer gives another perspective, who is the light bringer, right? Who's trying to shed light upon what's going on here and not have mankind be asleep, essentially.
Yes.
But then once you do you eat of the fruit of knowledge, whatever you see the light, then things aren't so pretty anymore.
Right, but you're shown that
you're
there's
shown
an
the
illusion.
truth.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You're shown the illusory
that you're being lied
nature.
to.
Right.
By the supposed God that created you.
Exactly, because that's really you.
And then, here's where it gets interesting though. If you look at what that God ends up doing based off the narrative, and it's important to understand that like all this is kind of like maybe also more metaphorical, like the stories like the Tower of Babel or whatever is like supposed to be like them just trying to build a tower to reach God in heaven.
Right.
I think it's supposed to be more ascending. You know what I mean? Like you like growing as people.
Right. The tower is a metaphor for humanity being on the same page.
Yes. And
being all trying to reach a higher state of existence with one another, a harmonious state wherein we are not harming one another, and we are living with space and with respect and with reverence for life, and for a minimization of pain and suffering. Yes. And then, but what makes that very difficult, one of the principal things that makes that very difficult, is that we all speak different languages. This is a curse upon mankind, essentially. Right? Yeah. If we could all just use the same mouth noises, how much easier would that make fucking everything? Yeah. Because there's all these different cultural differences, or it's crazy. That's one of the I forget what it is, and I haven't read enough of the Bible, but there's something in there about the languages, about somehow splitting the earth, and I think that had to do. Didn't Morgan mention that in one of the videos about the Tower of Babel, about splitting us up with language?
I think because of that, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why they created the division of languages, because of the Tower of Babel.
Yeah. So it's interesting to see this God does not want you to gain knowledge.
Does not want you to recognize your own divinity. Right?
Yeah, essentially. Exactly, right. Yeah.
Another thing that I love that Dr. Salim said was that he's like, people talk about a judgment at the end of your life, right? He talks about health and wellness being not only health and wellness for being in this life and in this body, he talks about for the next life as well. So it's not just about looking physically fit and being physically healthy like you can achieve with one approach. It's about having all of it, your consciousness, your life, the way you live, everything being healthy, so that you can carry that on into your next state of being. But what he says is that at the end of your life, he says, you judge yourself, no one judges you. You judge yourself, and that, he says, this is why some people they go over to the other side and they come right back, because it takes no time whatsoever for them to recognize that I have to do this again. That I had no idea what I was doing. Once you see the perspective that they from the other side, the way they live their life, whatever it is, whether it was right in some respects, that it was respectable in some degree, maybe they didn't do enough spiritually or whatever it is, didn't do enough conscious work about whatever. It's effort to do the meditations and to take care of the body and all these things, because he basically says that you've been given a body. What did you do with it?
Right.
Did you take care of it? Did you use it to do anything of respectable interest? And then he says at the end of it, you judge yourself, your organs judge you. That's what he says. They basically testify against you. And I think I talked about this, where there's microorganisms living in your whole body, so they could be having independent lives that you don't really know about. They could be running the show. We think they're just, baggage,
right,
and they're passengers, but we could be the passengers, and they're really dictating a lot of things. And then when when you die, and they say, "Oh, did you steal this thing?" Your hand says, "Yeah, he used me to conceal it," and your brain says, "He used me to plant it," or whatever. That's exactly the example he uses.
Wow.
About your organs judging you. And
wow.
If you've been doing some sort of soul work during your incarnation, then maybe it takes more time during your time on the other side, where you deliberate for a longer period of time. You go over these events in your life, and your body splits up and deliberate into points of consciousness that deliberate about what happened, and they say, do we need to do this again or not? It could be. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
But I mean, apparently, according to the Egyptian mythology, Anubis weighs your heart against a feather.
Oh yeah, right.
And, if it's heavier than a feather, that's not so good.
Yeah, I feel like
this is bad.
Yeah, I think it's I feel like this might have some tie into just having more like self-mastery and that relationship of balancing mind, body, and soul, so to speak. Maybe, I don't know. I could be wrong.
Right. No, that's essentially it.
That's
essentially it. He says you have to have some way of taking care of your body, and taking care of your mind, and taking care of your emotions, of managing them.
Yeah. Keeping ego in check, because it's a useful tool too. It's not just a thing that dictates how full someone is of themselves.
Managing all those different aspects of health.
Yes. Lots of.
It's a difficult.
It is. It's a balancing act. Everything in moderation. Truthfully, but there are some things that I've noticed along the way have been useful to avoid and useful to consume. So various things have been at various times too. And sometimes one thing doesn't work as much as it used to.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of tools when it comes to substances, when it comes to diets, or different ways of approaching things. I mean, we talked about it before. I brought up psychedelics, and then before I mentioned being away at treatment for other stuff. Full disclosure. I'm totally honest. Yeah, you can learn plenty of things from stuff that people demonize as well. The hard drugs, not a whole lot, but there's something there to understand different aspects about what your mind is capable of doing, what your body is capable of doing, how your consciousness relates to those two things, and the games you play with yourself can be it elucidates different things. It's not something you want to do over and over again, obviously, with the more dangerous substances. People have displayed that plenty of times over the years, but as someone that was interested in all of it, I felt the need to experience them. But there's more and more evidence now mounting in in scientific circles about the positive effects of psychedelics and how they can be used in order to achieve any number of things, really. I think one of the more interesting models about substance use came from Timothy Leary, actually, and Robert Anton Wilson, where they had the 8-circuit model of consciousness. And the gist of it basically is that the 4 lower ones, they call the terrestrial circuits, which we occupy most of the time, psychedelics and other substances, can allow you to access the higher circuits, the fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth, and then some other more substances of habit kind of access the lower ones. And apparently we occupy those most of the time in the fourth circuit, and then the psychedelics will take you into higher ones, where the sixth and seventh being the meta-programming circuits, he called them, where you can re-imprint the lower ones. So he used this as a way of reprogramming the mind. Actually did some experiments with it where he used LSD and Tibetan Buddhism techniques on recidivist criminals. So he did therapy with criminals who would go back to jail 80% of the time, pretty much, when they got arrested, and he flipped it so that they went back to jail 20% of the time.
Wow.
By using the whole meta-programming technique with meditation and LSD.
Wow. Yeah, wow.
So that's some interesting stuff to look at as far as understanding the body and brain specifically in relation to psychoactive substances. That was really interesting. I always liked that, and it's a pretty cool way to understand this thing as a tool, as like a vessel, something as an actual like suit that we're in.
Yeah.
And thinking about the human body not as something that I am, that like is actually part of me, that I as thinking about it as something that I occupy, and actually especially looking at like medical books and looking at it as, imagine the human body as something that someone designed, or something.
Right.
It's just really far out to think about.
It's like a living machine, though.
Right, exactly. It really is very machine-like in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to think about it in that way, and then think about it as something something that you're given that you have to take care of as well, right? Yeah. That's another thing. It's like we own these things like guitars or cars or whatever else, and you know, you don't take care of the things you own at your peril. And you know, plenty of us can go through the stages where, you know, we don't take care of things for whatever reason. We're lazy, or we don't care because we're depressed, or we're just unorganized or whatever. That's usually my problem, is I just like give up and I don't care about anything, so that I let things go to shit because I'm too preoccupied in my mind. But if you keep that mentality of like gratitude and being grateful for not only the things we own, but the body in and of itself. You know, and some of this stuff could sound corny, because I know like a lot of people will say things, oh, be grateful every day that you wake up, and like, fuck, trust me, I know it's like that is the hardest thing to do sometimes, because you especially when reading a lot of these things about the potentiality of where we are and what this place is, and then going down these dark rabbit holes about soul trap, reincarnation, whatever, the reptilians, blah blah blah. It's fucking dense and crazy, and sometimes you're just like, how could this? There's so much to it. How could someone make all this up? And then it's coming from so many different angles.
That's where it gets weird, though. So many different angles.
Right.
Yeah.
Even this shirt is funny. I picked up this shirt at Cosm. I always thought it was kind of like strange, because it has this like dinosaur reptilian type guy in it, like on climbing a mushroom and then holding a smaller mushroom.
Oh yeah, interesting.
So like implying that it was eating them or something. Yeah. So I just thought that was a kind of interesting juxtaposition. I'd never really seen like reptiles and mushrooms.
That's interesting. Now
together.
That's interesting.
But I've always kind of had this weird affinity for the reptile thing, even though it's kind of creepy and weird.
Yeah.
I have the snake on my arm, the Ouroboros. That was just something that I kind of got on a whim, because it was I wanted it for some reason. I thought as a band it would be cool, and I still love this tattoo.
Cool. It's cool.
But the Ouroboros meant a lot to me as an alchemical symbol, and just being something that's very closely related to chemistry and alchemy. Yeah, I don't feel that there's something entirely bad about the snake and the reptile, but is it that the
tool? It's dualistic, approach to it.
Right.
It has to be, because there's too many stories of it being a knowledge giver or some kind of something that seems more productive to humanity than destructive, I guess. You know what I mean? But then also the deception as well. I think it's just like malevolent and benevolent, you know what I mean?
Right.
Different
That's what.
Oh.
Do you like that light is that better?
I don't know, it's not that bad actually. It's a little calmer. Yeah.
It's a little calmer. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, kinda. Then there's the amber one. See how what?
Oh, that feels nice. Oh, stay away from the white light.
Right. This one's a little bit nicer. It's almost gray.
I like that, and I like the amber.
Yeah.
This is cool. All right.
Yeah, this changes it up a little bit. We could always edit that out, I guess.
It doesn't matter. It's all good.
We've been going for an hour and 16. Okay.
Yeah. 16, pretty much 17, 18 on this one. But yeah, I don't know. It's just. It's interesting if you do look at everything from a quasi-historical religious perspective, and every sort of culture to some extent has a flood story or a great flood story. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I think there are some literals you can take away from all of these religious studies and these religious texts. And that being said, a lot of it though does point to there being working of multiple entities at various times, and ultimately the message from the ones that do seem to be positive are about kind of just looking within, and that's where you find the true divine, the true source, your soul. You connect back, so that's another thing that we know to some extent is something we can do. So what does that mean? You know what I mean? Is that our true self? Is that us outside of this VR device we're wearing right now? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what is that?
Your consciousness, the point of your consciousness that goes into dreams and all that, and that can leave your body, right? What is that? It's interesting because in there's a real. It doesn't happen every time, but at least a few times with DMT for me, there's a real sense of leaving the body, of something like almost popping out of your top of your head or something, going somewhere.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't always happen like that. Sometimes the world just kind of melts in front of you, and you still feel like you're in your body, but you're frozen, and your body goes away. Yeah. But there's sometimes just a sense of actually leaving it, and there's other times I've had felt like I was looking at my body from like a bird's eye view, or could see around myself. I had some sort of awareness that wasn't just looking out of my eyes.
But it's definitely some state of timelessness. Were you feeling that too?
Right. That's a good way of putting it. Jordan mentioned something interesting about the astral plane. He was saying how time isn't linear in the sense that we think of it here, where there's a past and a future, and certain events transpired or didn't transpire. Right. So that's where the sense of truth comes from. He was saying.
Right.
From the fact that time is linear here, because then we have events that either happened at a point in time or didn't happen at a point in time, and that gives this whole context about things being true or not true, in a sense. And maybe that's where another sense, our sense of things being real comes from. Comes from that sense of linearity in time. Because he was saying in the astral, everything is basically real. If you're experiencing it and seeing it, it's real there. And that comes from the fact that you're not in time in the same way that you are here, with it being space everything. Moving on a line, or something.
You see it all.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That's what my ex was talking about. That makes sense. Seeing everything, and then you zoom into one thing and you can see that particular moment. So we do know that seems to be how you can navigate the astral. Is some kind of I don't know, some.
Do you think
focus.
Some of that comes from controlling your emotions in a way? You think some of that the practices of meditation or Zen can bring aid to something like astral projecting or whatever?
Yes. 100%.
Because I was thinking about the energy harvesting thing, and that if they're harvesting negative energy, which certainly could be the case, that something is doing that, either negative or positive, but not only positive or negative in the sense of themselves, but in an unbounded sense. So it's either that you're experiencing negativity in a way that's unhealthy. It's not just grieving or sadness that is appropriate. It's something that you're generating unnecessarily, like you're getting angry when you don't need to be, or you're getting extra sad about seemingly nothing, like where depression or anxiety comes into play. That tense energy that people have, anxiety, why they don't want to leave their house, or why they don't want to whatever, they're nervous around other people or something, that tense energy, or a state of happiness that is not grounded, like I was saying before, that didn't come from something that you built slowly or something like that. A sense, or that sense of satisfaction that you get from, say, completing an assignment, or doing some work, writing a song, or painting something that you put like effort into, that you then feel this grounded, sustained sense of happiness from, that isn't just a spinning of your wheels like you would get from a substance, from a drink, or even from food, because you get that sense of happiness from food, but it's fleeting. It's not the same kind of grounded happiness that you get from something that's measured, or even a processing of a more negative emotion in a way that is at least grounded, so that you're observing the negative emotion, but you're not letting it make you hysterical or something. So I think the practices of meditation, or whatever it is trying to bring us to that place. They say meditation doesn't have a goal necessarily, so it's maybe a weird way of putting it for meditation. And I don't know what else we necessarily do to kind of practice that. And maybe it's not always the best thing, because we do want to feel states of extreme happiness. Of course, we don't want to feel states of extreme sadness or pain, but are they beneficial? Maybe some people like them. Some people induce extreme senses, extreme experiences of physical pain on purpose. No one really seems to do that intentionally with emotional pain, but maybe maybe some people do. There's some weird people out there.
Right.
So, but is the generation of those kind of energies something that another being or technology could be powering something with, or pull, or feeding off of, or whatever? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, if it's all set up, I mean, if it is set up that way, it's possible. If there was, and that's kind of going back to like the thing with looking at the Bible from it, or any kind of religious text from a quasi-historic religious perspective, you could lend some truth to the idea of there being entities with powers that, like false gods, like there being a false god, you know what I mean, who still would do stuff like destroy everything if it wasn't worshipped or whatever, you know what I mean?
Right.
So that right there sets up also. All right, hold on. I'm getting in my mind. I'm getting ahead of myself. So let me just rephrase this. So if you look at it from that perspective, right away, if you don't worship, you are destroyed. So it's kind of inducing fear and anxiety. So then you look at the people who put this into effect, and it's like religion's orthodox spread from, you know, Catholicism and everything else, but with their control, and then their relation to the World Bank, the Vatican's relation to the World Bank being related to, you know, I can't think of Rothschilds or Rockefeller, one of those. Both of them. So, you know, it's all just like, okay, there's obviously a connected narrative that's agreed upon. Otherwise, these things would not be connected. The money's there. Just follow the money.
And look at what the types of things that go on in a lot of these Orthodox communities.
Yes.
The apparently anytime there's a fundamentalist Christian group or whatever that tries to break off from society, and they hoard guns or something, like Waco. I just saw the other one.
Oh yeah.
And then there's always some guy who's fucking everyone's wives. And then just look at the Orthodox Islam, the fundamentalist Islams, or the Orthodox Jews. Not the best stuff goes on with them a lot of times either.
Yeah.
I've heard some horrible stories.
Yeah.
So what is the good that a lot of these apparently, you know, good religions are doing?
Yeah.
It's weird.
It's just a message.
But then Kabbalah, like, you know, is where, or I guess Judaism came from Kabbalah, really.
Yeah.
I feel like that was more primary than the whole thing about Abraham and that whole story that Judaism is based off of.
Right. Yeah, and the Kabbalah got adapted into Hermeticism and everything, you know. So
yeah, they're essentially the same practice. Whoops, I just hit that.
It's all good. It's all good. It's good.
I mean, I was told a while ago that the 3 pillars of alchemy were alchemy, astrology, and Kabbalah.
Right.
Or of Hermeticism, or alchemy, astrology, and Kabbalah. Kabbalah was really important to that whole thing, and but a lot of that stuff is. This is where I want to get Jordan's voice on a lot of this stuff, because he has really dug into a lot of it, and you know, was trying to come up with more practical ways of doing a lot of this work that isn't as tedious as some of these other things that come up in Kabbalah or whatever. Like you were saying on the phone about manifesting stuff, how you don't have to, you know, do the lesser banishing ritual every single day or all this other, but there is something you have to do.
No, that's more manifesting. More is just like your desires and stuff, like, or things you want.
Right.
That's
but I mean, what does it all ultimately come down to?
The middle
right?
pillar is a separate thing, though. That's more about building a foundation of understanding, making a connection with energy to everything above and everything below, and you and everything. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Then that helps towards developing the solar body. down the road when you get down to all the other rituals and stuff.
Right.
That's what helps reinforce, I guess. So it's like more. I see what you're saying, but I would say they're connected, but they're not the same. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're connected ideas, but not.
Lately, I've been trying to focus on. I mean, I wish I would do more, but just the body, like trying to do yoga in the morning and in the evening, and then work in a breath practice with that, because, and then try to pay attention to diet and supplementation and all those things, because I just feel like the body is kind of gives way to the mind, but I guess you can do it the other way too, because I guess, but I just feel like it's easier to work on the body to then get the mind right, but it's not only the body. You can't do all the work with the body, but you can do a significant portion.
Right.
Of lining yourself up and getting yourself ready to do. I think we're running out of steam a little bit, and I'm going to stop this. Do you want to stop it, or do you want to pause it?
No, we can stop. We got a lot in there.
We got an hour and a half.
I mean, the whole thing is just questioning everything, but not saying we believe in anything. We're just discussing it.
That's what I was going to make a separate video.
Okay.
Let's just